Sami Zayn is the new WWE champion. Oh my God. Guys, I did not watch Night of Champions live. It was very early in the day, so I didn't see it live. I just watched the highlights and I saw some reports saying that Sami Zayn won the title. I thought maybe it was just something that popped up on my feed. But then I looked at the highlights of Night of Champions, and man, this was a huge moment. For Sammy, really big moment for him to finally win the big one in Saudi Arabia. As we know, that's not his hometown, but they consider him to be a homesman because of him being a Syrian descent and Muslim or whatever or whatnot. So he has his ties to Saudi Arabia, even though we know he's actually from Canada, but he has his ties with Saudi Arabia, and that this was a really big moment for Sammy. He's been playing this somewhat tweener character, this heel facious character, where he says about he's been doing lately ever since his feud early this year with Trick Williams. Where he's been saying that he has his diehard fans. You could see it here. Whenever he's in Saudi, the fans are always cheering him. And it's funny. I had literally said, what if they throw a curveball and actually have Sammy win the title? But what made this even more interesting is not just the fact that he won, but the fact that he pinned the champion, Cody Rhodes, in doing so. And so this was a huge moment for Sammy. Um, when you think of everything this man, has gone through, um, he's been he's been with WWE in total for about 12 years. I think he first showed up around late 2014, early 2014, a little bit before Kevin Owens did. Because when Kevin Owens came and when Sami Zayn actually won the NXT Championship, which was Kevin Owens' debut in NXT, he attacked him after he won the title. So Sami, I want to say, came in at some point in 2014 or late 2013. And so even when he won the NXT championship, he didn't hold it for that long because he, not long after lost to Kevin Owens. Then when he had his big match, with Cena on the main roster in 2015, Cena did the U.S. Open Challenge and it was in Canada when they was in Montreal. And Bret Hart introduced him. He got injured and was out for like 6 months or so, however long he was out. But you know, in 2016, that's when he was like officially called up to the main roster. You know, and that was really the start of where Sammy would go today. I mean, this man, you know, had some really stellar matches with Kevin Owens. I mean, they had some matches in ROH and PWG as well. I just never seen all of them. I seen some of the ones from ROH when he was El Generico. Always has been really good in the ring, really his character, but he's taken it to new heights since coming to WWE. And you think about everything that's happened from the last years, like being on the main roster, him winning that title this year really comes in full circle when you consider the fact that it wasn't until 2016 he first came to the main roster, and it really just didn't seem like at that time, he would have won. He was going to be the guy, to win it. It seemed like Kevin was the guy, which he was, for a time before his booking started to get pretty weird. But, he had that feud with Kevin that was really good that year. I mean, they feuded multiple times since then, but I specifically remember they had a match at Battleground that year that was really good. That Sami Zayn actually won. That was really good, and you know, it took Sammy a long time just to win a singles championship on the main roster when he did get called. Those first couple of years, he was doing really good work, but when he would challenge for titles, whether it was the IC title or the Like I think at one time you went against the Miz or something and failed to win the championship. Um, at during that time, which was like when the Miz was at his peak with his IC title reign. That was like when he was really in his prime with that reign. Um, but you think about all that. You think about when he turned heel. Hell in the Cell 2017. I mean, this guy has really come a long way with his character. Where he was in the beginning, he was pretty much compared. He was considered as like the underdog, very reminiscent of Daniel Bryan, with how he was in the beginning, and the fact that they even announced, like Michael Cole, they were saying how you know he's failed at winning the big one 9 times. So the fact that it took him 10 tries to finally win the big one, it really says something. It really does. Because I remember, obviously he didn't. He lost to Roman when they was in Montreal for the championship back in Elimination Chamber in 2023, leading up to WrestleMania 39. But he also lost a year later to Gunther for the championship on an episode of Raw. When Gunther was the champion, and so, and then he lost to Drew McIntyre earlier this year at the Royal Rumble in Saudi, which was his first time losing in Saudi Arabia. So you think about all these failed attempts that he's had at the winning the big one and finally winning the fast. The triple threat, from the highlights of what I've seen, was really good. It was everybody had their chance to shine. You know, Cody with the crossroads, Sam with the Luger kicks, back dropping Sammy through the announce tape, breaking the table at one point. I mean, everybody had their time to shine, but when you think about how far Sammy has come, because even when he did turn heel and line himself with Kevin during that Hell in a Cell match Kevin had with Shane McMahon, he still had ways to go, and his heel work. He went from like being that type of heel to like the comedy type of heel because he was out for most of 2018. Him and Kevin had that match with Shane and Daniel at WrestleMania 34, but it wasn't long after he was out that came back 2019 and after WrestleMania 30, 38. No, not at WrestleMania 35, and lost to Finn Balor for the IC title, and cut a heelish promo after acting as a face, whatever. But he's had so many ups and downs, and it really wasn't until 2020 that he finally even won a singles championship. Which is crazy when you think about it. When you consider the stuff he was doing before on the main roster, it took him to 2020 because that's when he won that's when he won the IC title at like a handicap match or something with him and Shinsuke against Braun Strowman. I think it was at like the Chamber that year. That was the first time that he won a singles championship on the main roster. And he would go on to retain it against Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 36 with no fans. But that was the first time. And he would go on to win that title, the IC title, twice, 3 times. No, he won it 3 times. He won it twice within that year, but the third time is when he beat Gunther at WrestleMania 40 and actually broke Gunther's undefeated streak at that point in time. Because at that time, Gunther hadn't lost on the main roster. He finally put an end to that when he beat him for the IC title. But just piggyback before that, though, he was playing this comedy type of heel. He had the match with Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania 38, which really showed he could go anybody. He even before that, had a stunt with Kevin Owens at 37, which was when Logan Paul first burst on the scene. But they kept him in the mid card for some time, but he really always showed he could work and he could go. And to see him, get this moment, a man who, like I said, at one point was considered an underdog, still kind of is to some extent. Like I said, he's just with the way he's done his character now and how much he's really improved himself since he first came to main roster. It really says a lot, because he's a three-time IC champion, two-time U.S. champion, actually won uh, the tag title with Kevin Owens, beating the Usos at WrestleMania 39 in the main event. So you got the finally main event of WrestleMania, lost out his best friend Kevin Owens, which that was Kevin's second time main event of WrestleMania. Because the Bloodline story really, he was the star of it, and that even as a heel, like that was a defining moment for Sami at that point in time, and when he turned face at the Rumble 2023, and that explosion that the crowd had really just said a lot. But even after that, like he still was just doing, tremendous work. And it really seemed like at one point last year, they were building Sami up like he was going to actually win the title then. But then they moved him over to SmackDown. And like I said, man, three-time IC champion, two-time U.S. champion. None of his reigns have particularly been long, and I surely don't think this one will be long either, but I'm still happy for him, man. This was a beautiful moment for Sami to win the title here, regardless of what the reason of why they pulled the trigger, whether it was because of ratings or whatever. It's interesting to see where they go from here with Cody. I do feel like he's still going to be in the title. He's still going to be in the title scene at SummerSlam in some way. Whether that's a one-on-one with him and Sami, I don't know. But it'll be interesting, to see where they go with SummerSlam. It definitely feels like they're just going to do him and Sami, because I can see Olga going after, Roman Reigns, who won the King of the Ring, by the way, which was great for him. Really good opener on him and Jey Uso. And really good match with Io and Liv, with Io being the Queen of the Ring and challenging Liv at SummerSlam. Excellent matches between those two. Liv and Io, they always have great chemistry. Every time I've seen them face each other, seen those matches, usually always really good. So this one was no different. But yeah, man, like I said, I mainly just wanted to come on here and talk about that. Huge moment for Sami. I'm just now finding out about it, but I'm really happy for him. Even if it's just transition or whatever they're going to do with him. This was huge, man. This was huge for Sami Zayn. 10 years in the making. 12 years if you want to count the time he was in NXT, but 10 years just in terms of the main roster and everything that, some of the injuries and, the back and forth stories with him and, Kevin Owens going at it. And then, when he was with the Bloodline, which is really what put the comedy there, with the Uzi stuff he used towards, Jey Uso said he wasn't very Uzi and how over that got. It really, really just said a lot. Really just says a lot. And yeah, I'm just really glad, that he's gotten this moment, and huge deal for him. So we'll see where they go with this, but this was the unpredictability in a good way. The stuff that we really need from time to time. Because I like Cody, and Cody still has his fans, but unfortunately, Cody's, for at least for some people, he's getting stale. You know, and this kind of really shake things up. I don't know if Cody, like last year, someone was saying he's going to win the title right back, which would be kind of crazy because he's already won it, twice within just, well, he won it early this year back from Drew McIntyre in the March 7th episode of SmackDown after Drew beat him for it on the January 11th edition in that Three Stages of Hell match that they had. Um, so they already had that happen. I really don't think Cody should win the title back this soon. Again, for a fourth reign. I say let Sammy run with it. Even if it's just for like 2, 3 months or 4 months, just let him run with it for a while. See how he goes with this, because again, this is a huge moment for him, as they were calling it a miracle in Saudi. I mean, like I said, I didn't even scratch the surface on Sammy's full career outside of WWE, but just the fact that, within the 10 years he's been with the company and everything he's done, like I said, with the stuff with Johnny Knoxville, WrestleMania 38, the comedy there. I mean, that match got the biggest pop of the night of WrestleMania 38, which is crazy. And that's before he was with the Bloodline, before he tried to line himself to Bloodline. That got the biggest pop of the night. And then, um, then you look at the stuff he had, with Drew, and failure after failure, you know, winning the U.S. title. The first time he won, he beat Solo last year on SmackDown, was doing the U.S. Open Challenge, brought that back in honor of Cena. He was actually Cena's last match last year on SmackDown that ended in a no contest because Brock Lesnar came out and attacked both of them. So, I mean, Sami has always been a great worker. Um, he's always been a good worker. And his character, he's definitely managed to adapt his character, good on the mic, managed to adapt his character and everything. So, like I said, this was a massive moment for him. Because now, I mean, he could pretty much say that he's, which you, like, if you don't want to count I guess the speed title or whatever, you pretty much say he's like a Grand Slam champion, either a Grand Slam champion or a Triple Crown, because he's already won the IC title, he's already won the U.S. title, and he's already won the tag titles. So so I think this makes him a Triple Crown. He would only be a Grand Slam if he was to win the world title, um, which is held by Roman. If he was to win that title, I think that would make him a Grand Slam. But now this officially makes him a Triple Crown because he would have held, all the major, titles currently in WWE. And that, that's just a big moment, especially when you consider the fact, like I said, it took him until 2020 before he even won his first singles championship, despite the work he had done prior, in 2019, not counting 2018 because he was injured for most of that year. In the second half, he was out pretty much for the rest of the entire second half. After the match he had with Bobby Lashley, he was out for like the whole second half of the year. But you know, he did play a big role with the stuff with him and Shane McMahon, Daniel Bryan leading to WrestleMania 34. But if you just go, like I said before that, um, he really had to come a long way. I mean, I even think about the classic match he had with Shinsuke in 2016, Shinsuke's first match in WWE, and Sami's last match in NXT before being called up. I think that was when they was in Dallas or so. Yeah, that was WrestleMania weekend, WrestleMania 32 weekend. And you even go back to that. I mean, he's always been really good at the ring. And like I said, just character-wise, he's really developed himself tremendously. So really happy for Sammy. Um, and like I said, I would say just run with it. I wouldn't give Cody the title back this soon. Um, but he's likely not going to hold the title that long. But again, hopefully he holds it at least longer than a week or two. We shall see. But big moment for Sammy. Huge moment for Sami Zayn. And so that's all I want to talk about, guys. Really happy for Sammy. He's definitely, um, come a long way. And even though he did have some big moments, like I said, when him and Kevin finally dethroned the Usos for the tag belts in main event of WrestleMania 39, night one, and even when he beat Gunther for the U.S. title at WrestleMania 42, those are both really big moments. But this, tops it even higher, winning the big one in the capacity that he won it. With a roll up on Cody was just really amazing. So, took him 10 tries, all the chances he's had at the title, but he finally did it. He finally did it. And that is just a beautiful moment for him. I must say. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So I don't really have to flex. That's how I describe Cody Young.